The green room. Emma had always loved theater. The bright stage lights, the applause, the way she could lose herself in another world, it was her escape. Her high school's fall production was coming up, and as usual, she had volunteered to help in any way she could. Tonight, she was staying late to help clean the green room, the backstage space where actors prepped before going on stage. The rest of the theater club had left an hour ago, and now the school felt eerily silent. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long, trembling shadows on the tiled floor. Emma moved through the green room, sweeping discarded costume pieces and props into a pile. She felt a chill creep up her spine, the kind you feel when you're being watched. She shook off the sensation and focused on her task. The old mirrors along the far wall, their edges flaked with age, reflected the dim light of the room. But when Emma glanced up, her reflection was different, distorted. Her face, though still her own, looked sunken, her eyes hollow and dark. She blinked hard and looked again. Normal. She laughed at herself, but the laugh sounded thin and nervous. As she turned away, a soft creaking sound broke the silence. It came from the door at the far end of the room, the one that led into the prop closet. Emma's heart skipped a beat. That door had been closed. Slowly, she walked toward it, the hair on her arms standing on end. She pushed the door open a little wider and peered inside. The closet was dark, but she could make out the outlines of boxes, stacked haphazardly with old costumes and stage props. "Hello?" she called, her voice small in the stillness. No answer. She took a step inside. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she noticed something strange. At the back of the closet, where there should have been a wall, there was now a long, dark hallway. Her stomach dropped. There was no hallway behind this closet. It was impossible. But there it was, stretching out into the blackness like a mouth waiting to swallow her. She stepped back, but the door slammed shut behind her, locking with a sharp click. Emma's pulse quickened as she tried to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. She was trapped. A cold breeze blew from the dark hallway, carrying with it a faint, metallic smell, like blood. "Okay, this isn't funny," she whispered, her voice shaking. "This isn't funny." The air around her thickened, and she felt something move in the darkness ahead. It was subtle at first, a slow scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged along the floor. Then, a low guttural growl echoed through the space, reverberating off the walls and settling deep into her bones. Emma backed away, pressing herself against the door. The growling grew louder, and soon, shapes began to emerge from the blackness. First, they were shadows, tall, twisted figures that writhed and shifted. But then, they solidified. Monsters, real monsters. One had a long skeletal body, its skin pale and stretched too tight over its bones. Its eyes were black voids, and its mouth was full of sharp, jagged teeth. Another creature crawled on all fours, its arms too long for its body, and its fingers, if they could even be called fingers, ended in long, curling claws. They were all wrong, like nightmares stitched together from the pieces of other nightmares. They shuffled forward, their movements jerky and unnatural. Emma's breath hitched. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't scream. Her throat felt frozen shut. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out everything but the sound of those things drawing closer. The lead creature, the one with the hollow eyes, tilted its head as if studying her. It reached out, its hand skeletal and cold, and Emma knew she couldn't let it touch her. With a burst of adrenaline, she forced her legs to move, bolting down the dark hallway. She didn't care where it led. Anywhere was better than here. The hallway twisted and turned, impossibly long. Her shoes slapped against the cold, hard floor as she ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The monsters were behind her now, their growls and snarls growing louder, closer. She could feel them gaining on her. Up ahead, she saw a door, a heavy metal door with a small rectangular window. Hope surged in her chest. She sprinted toward it, throwing all her weight into pushing it open. But it wouldn't budge. Desperation clawed at her as she pounded on the door, her fists slamming against the cold metal. "Help! Please, help!" she screamed, her voice raw and panicked. The growling was right behind her now. She turned to face them, backing against the door as they closed in. Their eyes gleamed in the darkness, hungry and malicious. She was out of options. Suddenly, the lights in the hallway flickered, and the creatures stopped. They tilted their heads in unison, as if listening for something. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, they retreated into the darkness, their growls fading into silence. Emma was left standing alone, her breath coming in shaky gasps. The door behind her creaked open. She stumbled backward through it and found herself not in the green room, but on the stage. The lights were bright and blinding, and she could hear the distant sound of applause, though the auditorium was empty. She turned in a circle, confused, her mind racing. What had just happened? But as she stepped toward the edge of the stage, she felt it, a presence, watching her from the wings. Slowly, she looked toward the side of the stage, where the curtains hung in heavy folds, and there, standing just beyond the curtain, were the monsters. Waiting. This time, they wouldn't stop. The stage lights flickered once, twice, and went out. All that remained was the sound of the growling, closing in.